Today's topic is all about the macros that we eat and why we actually need them. How does it help the immune gut connection? And are they really that crucial? The answer to that question is actually yes. But you probably already knew that if you're watching this video. So let's chat about this because, we are always talking about micronutrients. That seems to come up a lot, especially in our discussions, is we talk micronutrients a lot, but they're not the only things we need to pay attention to nutritionally. We actually do need to pay attention to our macros. And while I like to say don't pay so much attention to them, you don't want to completely ignore them either. They are a big part of our lives. They're a big part of our diet and our health and our well-being. And yeah, that's just going to be and with macros, it's very easy to look at macros and go, okay, I'm going to eat this much, this percentage of fats and this percentage of carbohydrates and this percentage of something else. When in reality, yeah, it's that simple, but how do you actually judge that as you're going through your day? How do you do that? It can seem very, very overwhelming for some people. Now, one of the other things that we're going to talk about today is obviously the immune gut connection and macros as they apply to that. How do they help? How do they hurt? And then we're also going to talk about 4 different micros. Let me make sure I really wrote down. Yeah, 4 different micros that are very significant. What we're going to talk about next week in the third video is really the food that you can eat and the herbs that you can have on a regular basis, things you can put in your coffee, teas that you can drink, infusions, essential oils, all of that good stuff, in addition to diet that you can eat to make sure that all of this is balanced. So you really, while you understand all the intricacies that we're talking about, it's not something you have to pay attention to day in, day out, meal in, meal out. Okay. It's just something that is there that subconsciously you have to pay attention to. But if you're eating a very well balanced diet and you're including foods that have, the right macros, the percentages, the meals have proper macros or healthy macros. I don't want to say proper, but healthy macros, then you really don't have to worry about, am I eating this much or that much? So let's get into this, shall we? So now we're going to go over just a couple of things that we had discussed last week. Let me just preface that. So if you're watching the second one, you're going, "Oh my God, she's going down this rabbit hole again." I am not. But we do need to talk about a couple of things that are across the board. All right. So first and foremost, 70 to 80% of our immune system lives within our gut. That's why this connection is so strong. That's why it's so intertwined. Because if your immune system is out of whack, your gut cannot be in balance and healthy. It can't be, because if the gut is healthy and balanced, then your immune system has everything that it needs to function optimally, which in essence means that the rest of your body is working as optimally as it can. It's all intertwined. So that's part of the reason that we're focusing on immune system this month. That on top of the fact that change of seasons, we're basically, if not, we're on the precipice, if not fully involved in cold and flu season. So these are good reminders for us to start taking care of ourselves before the holidays hit and we get distracted. All right, so now we'd mentioned self, non-self last week, right? Your immune system differentiates between cells that are us and cells that are not us. Things that are harmful and things that are innocuous. Now, the innocuous ones typically come from food, they come from things that you put on your body. So consumption as well as, things you put on your body. But 80 to 90% of that is the food that we consume. And yes, herbs are considered food by the immune system. It just sees very simple structures. This is our self, this is our non-self. Is it going to hurt us or is it going to help us? That simple. That simple. Now, there are two types of immune cells that we need to talk about. There are the innate cells, and then there's the adaptive. The innate is really your first line of defense. These are the guys that are the soldiers that come out and they just attack. There is no differentiation, there's no regulation. It's just attack, full force, go have at it, bullets blazing everywhere type of attack. Okay. Your adaptive immune cells are the ones that really look at cellular structure and they try and figure out which ones you need to keep. Well, how do you attack this? There's discretion within their assessments. So your T cells and your B cells, have you heard of these? And then your IG cells, this is kind of where they play a role, is within these adaptive immune cells. Histamines are triggered within here. They can actually send cells to the innate, but ultimately the innate are kind of like your emergency soldiers. Like they know something's happened and they just need to respond. Now, once all of these cells are activated, they need energy. This is where the macros come in. Okay. Now, I know I talk a lot about high protein, high fat diets aren't necessarily the healthiest thing. You want plant-based in there. That the majority of us really don't do well long term on a high fat, high protein diet. Not saying you cannot. There are people out there that have obviously proven they do well, they're succeeding, they're thriving. So, is it possible? Absolutely. For the majority of us, not so much. Um, there's very specific ins and outs with a high fat, high protein diet that you want to make sure you're adhering to. And if you're not, then it can really be more detrimental to you than helpful. And that is why the majority of us really just can't stick with it. It's not a long-term plan. It's a short-term plan and can definitely help you in the short term in the interim. But long term, there's more more of us that don't do well on those diets than there are do. Okay. And it really is just you got to stick to certain things to make sure that you're treating your body well. And if that's something that you can do and you feel well, you feel healthy, you feel like you're thriving on a high fat, high protein diet, by all means, that's what this is all about. This is what life is all about. It's too short. We have to eat, right? So if that's your thing, that's your thing. No, no ill will here. I'm not going to come down on you for it. I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise. You know your body, you know how you feel. If you feel like you're thriving, if you're waking up energized, you are good. If you're not, we need to look at things and assess, right? So now let's talk more about these macros and why am I harping on fats? Well, your immune system is fueled by fats. It loves fats. It absorbs them, it uses them, it fills its cells and sends its little soldiers out with them. Not the only thing it uses, but it is a crucial component and it really just loves eating fats. So now let's backtrack a little bit. I always like to start with carbohydrates because this is one that it kind of makes me chuckle because there are so many people and so many people really that do this. I don't know what word I was going for there, but there's so many people that do this. They say that they're going low carb, right? But what they mean is low grain or they're removing grain. So they're going no carb or low carb, or they need to minimize their carbohydrates. But in essence, what they mean is not carbohydrates, but grains. Much different. Grains are a component of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are comprised of your fruits, your vegetables, your grains, and your starches, all of which our bodies needs to function optimally. Can you replace it with other things so that you could go grain free for long term or you could go, starch free for a longer period of time? Yeah, you're asking your body to convert things. So that's going to take an adjustment period for your body to kind of clue into that, but you can do it. So now, what is a carbohydrate? A carbohydrate is our energy building reflux. Okay. This is where your body first pulls energy from, right? Protein fuels that production. Protein is like a backup source of energy, but protein is like the gas that the energy cells need to get up and go. Um, Carbohydrates, the one crucial element for carbohydrates, especially when we're talking about immune system, is your fiber content. Okay. As well as the pH balance. So your acid base balance within your gut. These two things are actually regulated by the carbohydrates that we eat. If we eat a diet that is too high in acid or too high in alkalinity, our acid base is going to be off. There has to be a balance there, right? Optimal health, there has to be a balance. Um, your carbohydrates are the bio bonding molecules that within our gut, what they do is they help the microbiome, they help all those little bacteria in our microbiome connect to each other and eat and, just have a happy little main street. Yeah, they got the happy little houses and happy little streets and they go into the little boutiques and go to lunch and, all that. Your carbohydrates are really what allows that to happen. Now, I'm not saying that has to come all from grains. You can get all of that from plants. So if you're doing a diet, let's say like keto, where you're getting rid of your plants, right? You're getting rid of grains, you're literally getting rid of carbohydrates completely. You really do need to make sure you're paying attention not only to your micronutrients, but your macro consumption as well. How is your body feeling? What are you doing? Is this long lasting? Have you gone 2 weeks and now you're starting to slowly add these things back in? Minimally so, obviously. Um, but you're still not feeling that energy kick back up. If that's the case, you really look at your carbohydrate intake. That is a key component to providing energy sources to all those little soldiers, the acute soldiers, as well as the adaptive ones that take a little bit of time to strategize and be a little bit more stealth. We like the stealth ones. The stealth ones target, attack, in, they're out. That's how you know that you're feeling well. The other ones kind of knock you out because they're gonna knock everything out. It's just, flammable as right. All right. So now what about protein? I get asked a lot, how much protein is healthy? Well, it's about, I think scientifically it's 15 grams of protein for every kilogram. No, that's not right. So basically, if you are, I'm getting my math confused. My numbers are flipping this morning. I kind of love dyslexia. If you are a woman about 130 to 170 pounds, you're looking at 60 grams of protein a day. You're going to need to increase that. If you work out a lot, you do a lot of strength training, you do a lot of the extreme activities, so marathon running, half marathon running, those components or those activities, you're going to want to increase it just slightly because your body is being taxed. When you are fighting any sort of illness, um, or a bacteria imbalance, anything like that, you do want to up your protein slightly, mostly because you want to make sure that there is fuel for the carbohydrates and the fats to metabolize and do their job. So, baseline 60 grams, you do not need to go to 100, 120. Okay, you don't. Um, Going overboard can be just as detrimental as not having enough in any of these cases. So your protein is your building block. It is your hormone regulation. Your protein fuels the signals that go between all the hormones and can contain instructions for each of your hormones or your pancreas and your thyroid and your glands to produce these hormones so that your body operates optimally. Now, proteins actually also impact your gut microbiome. They're responsible for the balance of digestive juices. So they contribute to that pH balance. They contribute to the healthy gut for healthy bacteria versus unhealthy bacteria, that balance. Um, They are the core building block for the production of enzymes within your immune system. So it's the enzymes, the hormones, and the antibodies within your immune system. That basically is your immune system. Now, obviously, they all work synergistically, right? Fats, carbohydrates, proteins all work together. Fats are a concentrated source of energy for our body. So let's say we don't have enough carbohydrates, then your body's going to burn fat. So, I mean, over the years, we have heard when you go to work out, you want to work out for X amount of time, right? Go over that first 15, 20 minutes because after that, you're burning fats, you're not burning carbohydrates. Well, you can only burn fats for so long and then protein kicks in. It's usually about an hour. For those of you curious about that. Fats also are responsible for transporting all these things, the protein molecules that come in that get sent to all the various areas of the body. That's why the immune system likes it so much because it can basically attach things into the fats and send it all to the body and fight off whatever it needs to fight off with the help of its transportation system, which is your fats. Now, because the fats are your transportation system, right? It sends all these signals everywhere. Um, it can actually minimize a response, so to speak. So depending on how strong or how healthy the cells from the immune system are, how strong that fight is, your fat cells can actually either overwhelm it or help it. You want a healthy balance of Mac. So you want a healthy balance of fats, macros, and carbohydrates. And we'll talk in just a second about what that actual percentage, what a base percentage is. Some of us things are a little bit higher. If you are vegan or vegetarian, you might see a little bit different, numbers that are a little bit different. But for the most part, there's a simple solution or a simple percentage breakdown. So we'll talk about that in a second. Now, with fats, one of the other reasons that the immune system loves fats so much is EPA and DHA. These two synthesize within the immune system. They're crucial to the functioning of your body. Okay. They're crucial for metabolization, they're crucial for functionality. Um, and ultimately, if you have an EHA or DPA or EPA, DHA, I don't know why I always get those, I flip those. EPA and DHA, if you have a deficiency in either one of those, then you're going to feel run down. You're going to feel like your energy is bottom of the barrel all the time. If you are fighting any sort of autoimmune dysfunction, this can be a problem that you want to really pay close attention to because the production of EPA and DHA is hindered. If your immune system is running, it doesn't necessarily go seek out EPA and DHA. It wants it, but it's busy. And when you're fighting an autoimmune dysfunction, what ultimately happens is your body is fighting itself. So your immune system is always running. It's like a chronic until it's not. And then it needs help to keep those motors going. Um, and that your fat consumption really does contribute to that. Um, all right, so now let's talk about these micronutrients. Now, what we're going to talk about next week is we're going to talk specifically about those foods, the medicinal foods, the herbal foods, the everything that can help you maintain a healthy immune system because healthy immune system, healthy gut system, right? They're in sync. It is just how it goes. Now, there are 4 crucial micros for immune health. These are the same 4 crucial micros for gut health. All right. They're intertwined. Zinc, selenium, glutamine, and vitamin D. A deficiency in zinc has been known to acutely trigger sepsis In extreme cases, right? Severe deficiency. When you're fighting off anything, even COVID, the number one suggestion was to make sure you have zinc every single day, 50 milligrams of zinc every single day. And yeah, it can come from foods, but if your immune system is being taxed, then you want to make sure that you supplement because no matter what, it'll be in your system. If it will not build up, zinc is not a buildup, is not fat soluble, it is water soluble. Um, a deficiency in zinc triggers acute inflammation. If you're inflamed, then your immune system is already taxing itself, trying to heal whatever inflammation has occurred. Okay. You go out, cold and flu season, seasons change. Not only is now your body trying to heal this inflammation due to a deficiency, not even due to an attack, but due to a deficiency in your diet. Now you're cold, so now you've got a double duty deficiency, and you're much more susceptible to colds and flus. It also means if you're fighting an acute inflammation of some sort because of a diet deficiency, then your gut's not happy either. So watch your zinc intake. It can really get very serious. Vitamin D is another one that it can get very serious, whether there's a deficiency or there's an overdose of it. Vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, so you don't want to overdo the consumption. So don't go out and get some 10,000 IUIs of vitamin D and just go take it. Um, First, you want to make sure that your vitamin D levels are within a certain range. You need to test to make sure they stay there. So if you've had any lab testing done within the last 6 months, look at that. You'll have a vitamin D line. Look at where it is. That tells you whether you only need 1,000 milligrams a day or you need 5,000. Anything over 5,000, you really want a doctor's advice on that. Um, it's just one of those fat soluble micros that can cause a lot of issues. The very first thing that happens when you have an overdose is your eyes start to get blurry and your brain gets foggy. We need our eyes. So don't mess with that. If you're not sure, get some lab testing done or start with 1,000, maybe 2,000 milligrams and just keep a very close eye on it. If you are in an area that has a lot of sunlight, you eat a lot of vitamin D rich foods, dark leafy greens, things like that, then you may not need a lot of vitamin D. If you are light skinned like me, then you probably do, but you probably don't need a lot. If you're outside a lot, you're in an area that has a significant amount of sunlight, especially closer to the equator, where it's a bit warmer, so it's nicer to go in and out. Um, and you eat a lot of those foods, you may not need it, but you need to test just to find out. Um, Zinc, you definitely want to keep an eye on that. That you usually can tell if your energy is wavering, if you kind of feel sluggish in the afternoon and nothing wakes you up, nothing perks you up. If you feel like you're constantly fighting something, look at your zinc. Adding 50 milligrams of zinc a day really won't impact everything else to significantly. Make sure with any of these recommendations, they do not counteract with any medication that you might be on. All right. Key component. Now, the two other ones, selenium and glutamine. So, selenium is one of those micronutrients. It increases the risk of chronic illness. So, effectively, if you're deficient in selenium, then your chronic illness risk goes up. We're talking cancer, we're talking cardiovascular disease, diabetes, things that are going to impact you lifelong. Um, Selenium is also a core component to help thyroid function. Brazil nuts have a very high content of selenium inside of them. So popping a handful of Brazil nuts, which is literally 2 to 3 because they're so big, every single day is actually really helpful. Yes, it helps your immune system. It also helps your thyroid. And by helping your thyroid and your immune system, you're helping your gut. Help your gut, help your body, right? All right. Now, the very last one is glutamine, and I left it for last for a simple reason. This gets a bad rep. It is included in a lot of foods that are processed that have some hydrogenated ingredients. And, an abundance of it, it can be detrimental, but for the most part, it's all right. Um, it's one of the non-essential amino acids, and its role is specifically for energy conversion. And the energy conversion of glutamine is actually much more efficient than that for glucose. Now, with your immune system, it's going to take the energy conversion from glutamine more so than the glucose. It's just a much more efficient process for your immune system. It specifically snags onto this and snags as much glutamine as it can get, triggers that production, that conversion during an active immune response. So it doesn't matter if it's the innate cells or if it's the adaptive cells, if you are in an active state of fighting something off, whether it is because of an autoimmune dysfunction or someone walked past, coughed, and you breathed in some cold germs. Sounds really gross, but guess what? That's what happens. Um, we've seen that with COVID, so it's what happens. Um, Regardless of what the situation is, when your body feels like it's in an active immune response, it's going to go for the glutamine over the glucose. Glucose is simple sugar production. It is an energy production. I'm not saying sugar is a bad thing. Sugar is not evil. Um, it's simply a component of our body and our diet. That's it. It is just simply a component. Now, with all of that being said, there are obviously many more micronutrients that are very important. A lot of this, so your carbohydrate, your protein, your fats, and the zinc, the selenium, glutamine, and the vitamin D, all can come from very similar foods. Obviously, I promote plant-based, so that's where we're going to go with this. I know I talked a lot about the high fat, high protein diets, but I really like plant-based diet, and here's why. If you have a dish that is all plant-based, you have reached your fats, your protein, and your carbohydrate percentages. You have a very healthy dish in front of you. In addition, you have zinc, you have selenium, you have glutamine in there, you've got some vitamin D in there, especially with dark leafy greens, cruciferous foods. Those foods have all of this inside of them. So let's talk macros and what the actual percentages is, because I promised you I would go over that. So base percentage, if you've ever heard of the zone diet basically put out these percentages, and effectively what they did was they took the base percentages, the balanced percentages, and put it out as a diet. Pretty crazy, huh? They're not the only ones. Um, and I thought it was genius because it woke a lot of people up to the fact that here's what you should pay attention to when you look at your macros. You want 40% carbohydrates, 30 fat, and 30 protein. Pretty balanced. Now you can shift that and make your fat percentage only 20% and then either increase your protein or increase your carbohydrate depending on your needs. That's always going to shift around, but for the most part, 40, 30, 30. And as I said, a lot of the plant-based foods out there, plants, grains, starches, all of that, they cover all three macros. So when you're looking at trying to create some sort of a healthy balance of each and healthy consumption of your macros, so that not only you're boosting your immune system, but you're helping really restore and maintain the balance within your gut so that the rest of your body can be healed and rejuvenated. Going plant-based at least 80% of the time with those dark leafy foods, cruciferous foods, those are the foods that are going to give you the zinc, the selenium, glutamine, and vitamin D. All right. So now I will chat with you guys next week. We are going to go into detail about all of the different foods that are out there and micros associated with those foods. We're mostly going to stay with superfoods because superfoods are what really truly fuel our body best. And we're not talking the expensive superfoods. We're even going to chat a little bit about lemons and cucumbers. So join me next week. We have a great third video waiting for you guys. Much more information. We're going to chat a little bit about macros, not so much. We're going to delve more into food and herbs and get you a list of these that you could carry around in your wallet, put it in your phone, something that's easily accessible that you can just look at when you're grocery shopping. All right. Thank you guys for listening. I will chat with y'all later.